This episode sponsored by Lake Monster Details, producing the Don's Light and Magic Legacy line of parts, offering upgrade parts and decals for accuracy, special effects, and lighting. Visit www.lakemonsterdetails.com and make it glow. Also sponsored by GCals, producing aftermarket replacement decals and custom quality graphics for your favorite spaceships. Visit www.gcals.company.site and add some personalization to your sci-fi models today. Also sponsored by Mask Design, boldly going where no masking kit has gone before. Take your model to the next level of detail and accuracy with a masking kit from Mask Design. Visit Mask Design on Facebook or click the ordering link in the notes below the video.
Hey, what's up, fellow modelers? Will here. Welcome to the Anson's Chair. So this is the first episode. I think this is the third episode, but it's the first episode where we're actually going to get to start working on and building this 1350 Enterprise A. And I've got some stuff we're going to go over in this video, but I'm trying to keep the videos, tiny bite-sized morsels. I don't want to do, hour-long videos, but before we get into the build, let me just mention real quick, if you watched the opening monologue, so to say, I just want to give a big shout out to Gary over at Mask Design for becoming a sponsor. And if you've been watching my videos, you know I love Gary's masks. I've been using his masks for, matter of fact, I've got on top of the Enterprise A, which I'm using his mask for, I've also got the Death Star that I'm working on, the exploding Death Star that I'm using his mask for. And he has sent me a set of the 1350 Aztecs for the Grissom, for the 1350 Grissom that I'm looking to start. But before I even start on that, I'm trying to get this build studio done because it's impacting, that's why it's taking me so long in between videos to get videos out, because I'm having to split my time between working on models and trying to get this build studio done. And it's about 90% to where I need it to be in order to just move my stuff in. There's some small stuff I can do after I get moved into it, but I've still got a little bit of electrical work and some drywall, a little bit more drywall to put up, and then it'll be ready. I can move in there and start doing stuff and just finish up the little stuff in there once I get moved in. But I am going to have a lot more space in there once I get that done, to where I can work on multiple builds easier. Right now I'm confined to my my little build station here, my little desktop, because my wife says so. But I'm confined here, so whenever I want to switch between the Death Star build and this build, I've got to clear one off and put the other one on, and I've got to put all the stuff that I need to work on it on the desk and move everything off, and it's a process. So once I get in there, I'll have at least two different work areas. One where I won't have a whole lot of stuff on it. It'll just be the model and just a couple of things I need to do what I'm doing at that time, versus my desk, which basically has a ton of stuff, my soldering iron, all that, which I need to have for most of my builds. But anyway, so I've in this video, I think I'm going to mention, because I'm filming this after I've done most of this video, but I think I'm going to mention that I got a lighting kit from Trek Modeler. I guess based on my previous video talking about how I wish it had the fade from amber to blue. Problem is, I've been trying to reach them since the 4th of July week, and it's now the 19th as of today, and I have not been able to get a response from them as far as a PDF for the wiring diagram and all that. So if I don't hear nothing from them, I'm looking to start doing some of that electronics work the next video. If I don't hear nothing from them, I'm just going to have to go with what my plan was, which is fine. But I hate having the lighting kit sitting here that I can't use now because I don't have the instructions and I haven't been able to get a response from them. But anyway, so the 1350 Enterprise A. There's a couple things we're going to do now. This is out of the box. It's a gorgeous model. You can put this together. You can paint it up right. You don't even have to do a ton of paint. The first one I built over 10 years ago now, I didn't do a whole lot. I just did the basic painting. But that one came with the Aztec decals, if you remember. These used to come with Aztec decals from Polar Lights. They don't anymore, which is unfortunate. But that's okay because I'd hate to have to waste those in order to use Gary's mask to paint this, because they're great. They were a great set of Aztec decals. But Gus over at Gcals is currently working on 2 different styles of decals for this. So when those become available, I will let you know. But I am planning on painting this one. But I've been working with Gus on those decal sets. So hopefully he'll have those out here not too much longer, but he does have several projects he's working on. But that being said, I don't want to hold this out any longer. Again, trying to keep these videos not too long. So give me a minute. I'll put you on the bench. We'll get to work. All right, guys. So first thing I want to take a look at before we actually get into starting to look at this build is I've been doing some paint tests. Just trying to come up with a final plan as far as what I want to do for the Aztecing paint. And if you've been following my Facebook page, I posted a couple progress notes. And one of the ones I did was I used the, I had shown before, the pearlescent paints from the other craft paints, but they're pearlescent. And let me focus this a little bit. Now what I did with this was I painted this with the pearlescent paints, and then I came over it with a coat of flat white and just kind of toned it down some. It's not bad looking. It doesn't look terrible. It's a little more pastel than what I would like, though. I've got an idea of what I want the final outcome to be, and this isn't it. Honestly, if I was going to do something like this, I think Gus's decals would actually look better than this, because Gus's decals don't look pastel like this. So I'm not going to go this route. I think I'm going to go a different route, and that's where these other paint tests have come up. I've done a couple of different versions of this. Now this is the interference paints that you see a lot of people using. Now I've got the taxidermy paints from I can't escape, the name escapes me. It's a taxidermy place that sells these pearlescent or interference paints. But these are actually the Daler Rowney paints, and they call them shimmering colors. And I actually got these from my local Michaels, I believe. And they're not in the paint section. They're actually in like the artistic, the art paint section, like you would get for painting canvases, and that I think is where these were. But these are a way better deal price-wise than paying for the interference paints from the taxidermy website, because these do exactly the same thing. I have both paint sets, and I can tell you that these are exactly what the more expensive taxidermy paints look like. So as you can see by this, I painted these 3 test subjects the same way. I didn't do all the interference colors. I just did some basic ones. I did the blue for the main Aztecing, and then I did add some other little colors in. And my airbrush was a little bit high when I did these, so there's a little bit of paint bleed in a couple spots, but you get the idea. So this middle one is basically the paint done with a matte finish. And you can see, or not, I'm sorry, not matte. This is a, what did I use for this? Yeah, no, I'm sorry, it is. It's a matte finish. Hence the M. So I did this and put a matte finish on. You can see that the matte finish really doesn't take much away from it. It still looks pretty good. So if I was doing the refit, I wouldn't have any problem putting this matte finish on it, because it still is very pearlescent and reacts much like I would expect it to. Now on the other hand, you see next to it I've got a flat finish, and that does subdue it a bit. That takes it down quite a bit. You see it's not as reflective, but the pearlescence is still there. You can still see it at certain angles. This one over here is basically a frosted I used a frosted clear coat on it, and basically if you look for like a frosted glass finish in a can, it'll say frosted glass. That's what I used on that, and that actually turned out pretty well too. But I think I like the flat better. It takes it down just a notch more. You would expect the frosted would take it down more than the flat, but looking at it, it looks like the flat actually took it down a bit more than the frosted. So I'm about to say something that I said I wouldn't do, which is I think I'm going to paint the interference colors and then take it down with a flat finish, and then probably top this off with a matte on top of that, because I want the final result to be kind of a matte finish. And I think once I do that, I'm going to have the finished product that I'm looking for, because even though it's subdued, if you watch the opening monologue, let me pull up this picture. And in the opening monologue of this, you see the Enterprise A, and you see this photo, and it shows clearly that even though it's the A, you can still see that paint, that those interference colors coming up through the paint. So that's the finish I want, and I think the only way I'm going to get that. And by the way, I'll just mention, if you look at this image, it kind of looks like they pretty much destroyed all the Aztecing where the registry is, looking at this, because you don't really see anything where that registry is. And of course they had to change this and move it over more when they added the A. They couldn't just add the A to the end, because then it wouldn't be centered right. So looking at this, you can tell it looks like they pretty much destroyed the Aztecing where the registry is. So, but you can see where the USS Enterprise is. All that Aztecing is still in place, and that's the look I'm going for. I want to have that pearlescent, but also have it toned down, but still be able to see that pearlescence to it. So even though I said I didn't want to do this, if I want this to look right, I don't think I really have any other option after doing some paint tests. It's just not giving me the final result that I want to see, and I think this is going to be closer to what I'm looking for. Like I said, this is with a flat, just one coat of flat on it right now, and then if I put a matte on top, that'll bring it down just a little bit more. But I think that's what I'm going to go with, and I hate to disappoint people that were hoping for kind of a quick and easy fix to that. But if I want it to look right, if I want it to look as close as possible to what the actual filming model looked like, that's what I'm going to have to do. I don't think there's really any other way around it. So just wanted to share that. That's what my paint results will be. Before I go into to doing this, I'll put a matte coat over this real quick and just do a final look at it, and we'll take a look at it once I get that done. But I'm pretty sure this is what I'm looking for. You still have that, but it's really toned down. It's not as reflective as doing it with a matte coat. So that's what I'm looking at doing with that. So with that being said, let me get all my parts in place on the table, and we'll take a look at starting this build. Give me just a minute. All right, so let's start by taking a look at Ian's website, and hopefully his family doesn't have any problem with me sharing this, but hopefully if this does end up going away after a year or so, we'll at least have a reference of it on this video. But this is Ian's website, ianlawrencemodels.com, and if you go here and you go down to his scale model galleries, he's got 3D meshes on here too, which is worth taking a look at. There's a couple on there, including the what was it, he's got some for the round 2 1 through 50 Star Trek Enterprise refit, and he's got that dish that I was talking about, and also the thrusters for the dish that just go in there, and it allows you to put, I think, a 3mm LED in there for those, so that'll come in handy. But there's a couple other things to look at on there, so go to his website, take a look around while it's still up. But if you go to the scale model galleries and then go to the work in progress link page, and I think you go to completed, he's actually got 2 1-350s on here. One I think was from 2007, and then the last one that he's got on here, the most recent, which is what I've been looking at, is this one from 2017. So if you go on there, he's got a whole build, a whole build log on here for the 1350 that he did. So just want to kind of reference a couple things on here because it's easier to look at it on here than it is for me to have to create side-by-side photos. Ian's already got them on his website, so feel free to go here and take a look at them. But the first thing Ian points out on his build is that the windows on the kit are a bit oversized compared to the studio model. If you look at the studio model, you'll notice that the windows have a definite space between them and the sensor bands on the top and the bottom. They don't touch the sensor bands at all. But if you go down and look at the kit parts, you'll notice that they touch the sensor bands, and in some cases they sit so low that they actually interfere with the sensor band. That's the way they are on my kit that we're going to take a look at here in a minute. So one of the first things he did was fix that issue, and the way he did it, because that, like he points out, it's the same issue on the BC deck as well. Those windows sit too low, they're not centered, and they're also oversized. So what he did to fix that problem was, after he mounted the windows, he pushed some putty through, and he let it dry, and he did some sanding, and he did some filling with some putty, but he drilled the holes. He re-drilled the holes at a smaller size and more centered, which looks real good. I'm not sure how he managed to do all that. It would be great if you could talk to him and find out, but how he managed to do all this work and sanding and still kept his sensor bands, because I've been doing a lot of work and trial and error with these, and let me switch back over real quick now that I've shown you what he's got on his website. Alright guys, so I've got the saucer up here, and let's talk about this minute. Here are the different tests I did on these window edge pieces, saucer edge window pieces here, and I've been doing a couple of tests to see which way I want to go with this. Now I did try to do this the way that Ian did his, but I am terrible. I will admit I am terrible at drilling oval windows. Round windows, no problem. Oval windows, they either come off uneven or they just never look right when I do them. So if you're good at drilling oval windows and round windows and you feel comfortable with it, that's probably the way to go. But I'm going to try a different route because I know I'm no good at doing either of those. I can't drill oval window. Well, I can do the round windows, like I said. The oval windows, I can't drill worth a damn. So what I've decided to do is I've done a couple tests here. I did one doing it Boyd's way, which Boyd pretty much, let me adjust the focus here. Boyd pretty much sanded this, and I think he might have even filled in. Got to do a little bit better on the focus. Let's see. I think he might have even filled in the sensor bands, but I know that he smoothed them out, and what he ended up using was he masked it off and then used a high build primer to create depressions where the sensor bands are, and I think he was going to use a decal inside of there. But I tried it. It looks fine. You can do it that way, and it'll turn out nice. But, as a matter of fact, you can see a couple of spots I didn't fill it in. I just sanded it down. I don't know if the camera's picking that up, but I still got some of the ridges in there. But my preference would be to try to keep these sensor bands. And I know people have tried to keep these sensor bands and they end up getting damaged or sanded off or what have you. And that may end up happening to me. I may end up having to change course. This will be my backup plan if I'm not able to do what I want to do, which is keep my sensor bands. Because I think this is a really good way to go about it. It still gives you that depression you need where your sensor bands are supposed to go. And it turns out nice. But what I've done is I've done a couple different tests, and you can see a couple of these I messed up on. This one you can see real bad. I messed up the sensor bands real bad. I don't know if that's in focus or not. Let me see if I need to focus that more. There you go. But yeah, you can see where I really messed up the sensor band. It's not trying to keep these lines in here and re-etch them just didn't work out too well the first time I tried them. That was my first attempt. And let's see. This was my second attempt, which turned out a lot better. What I learned to do here was instead of waiting until I got all these windows sanded, what I'll do is sand some, come back and just run the back edge of my hobby knife in the groove just to keep that groove there. And I would sand some more and then come back and do this again just to make sure I didn't lose that line, because once I lost that line, that's when I started having problems with the lines would just start going all over the place when I tried to re-etch them. Even if I used etching tape to try and re-etch them, it still would just get messed up, because these lines are so thin that there's just not a lot of plastic in between them. So this was my second attempt, and then this was the last attempt I tried. And you can see that for the most part, the bands turned out, I don't know if the camera's picking that up very well. The sensor bands turned out pretty well. They made out pretty well. There's a couple of areas where they could use some touch up, but for the most part, they worked out. And the other thing I did here was I had used the UV resin on this part here, which is the last one I showed you. This one and I think the first one. Yep, I used UV resin. The problem with UV resin is when you want to try to etch near these windows, because they interfere with the sensor band, inevitably that resin would just give way and you would end up getting hung up in there, and it would just end up, when you went to run your knife through it, would end up going off in a different direction. It just made it a mess. What I did was I ordered the acrylic window inserts from Laser Fire Creations, and I'll put these in the link below. But I really like these. These work out really well. They're crystal clear. Now it does take some work. Now you can push these in flush and just leave them be. But what they recommend, what Laser Fire Creations recommends, is you push these in, leave a little bit above, and I'll show you when I go to do these, but leave a little bit sitting above. I use some thin glue, some thin set glue, and put it on the backside and just kind of let the capillary action fill it in. And I would sand them flat, and this is how they would look out. That's Boyd. That's the one I did after Boyd's. This is how they look out. I mean, they turn out really nice. They're real smooth. They're clear. They're really clear through to view through. So I highly recommend using these, especially if you're just going to leave this be and do the windows like I would use these instead of the kit windows. I think it was like $45 for the full set, but you get a full set for every window you need. There's the rec deck windows, and you get two officer's lounge windows to try out. One is a formed window. It's got a bit of a curve to it already, and the other one you would have to sand into a curve. But you get two of those. You get your different windows for the secondary hull, the BC deck, saucer rim round windows, saucer rim oblong windows, the arboretum windows you get. Look at that. You get two acrylic pieces that are already crystal clear that you can insert, and they're ready to go. You get the saucer bottom, but you get windows for everything. You even get red windows for the observation deck, for the shuttle bay, for the observation over the shuttle bay. So that's really cool that they include those. But yeah, $45 I think is what they cost with postage, and but to me it's well worth it. They're really great windows. They turn out really nice. So just to clarify what I'm going to do here, I'm going to use those acrylic windows. I'm going to insert them and fix them in place, sand them. The best way I found to sand these to try to not damage the sensor bands is to just cut you a piece of sandpaper off. Just cut them into little squares. And then that way you can use the edge only. And that way you can it's a little easier to keep it focused on those areas rather than having a bigger piece of sandpaper and you're sanding those sensor bands at the same time. So we'll take a look at that as I start putting those on. But I started off with like I think a 250 or what was this? I don't have the size on that one. 280 maybe, 280 grit, and then I got all the way up to a 1000 grit, and they turned out really nice. So I think that's the way I'm going to go. If you want to do some tests yourself, you can order some additional window inserts from round 2 from Polar Lights, which is what I did. I think to order a whole new set of rim windows was about 16 or 17 bucks out the door. And they got them to me really quick. I think it only took them a couple of days, maybe a week at the most for me to get them from the time I talked to them on the phone. But their number, if you go to their website, there's a phone number on there that'll say for support. Call them and tell them what you need. You'll need the model number for the model that you are doing, and let them know the part numbers as well. So look on your assembly guide and see what the part numbers are for these, and tell them what the part numbers are, and they will get these out to you. Like I said, it's not a bad deal if you want to practice some before you go with a final decision on how you want to do these. 16, 17 bucks. So that's what I did, and I got a whole new set, so I was able to kind of just play around with these and see what I want to do. So I've got that done, and I've been working on putting some of these rim pieces in. But the way that I've been doing these is I've been taking these, and you've got where these little U-shaped connections go, and they sit in here. I don't glue there because what I found is if you take these pieces and let's see, what's my next piece here? I'm at the front, so it should be one of these pieces. But what I found is if you push these so that they sit all the way back in there, you end up, let me focus this so you can see this. Oh, that's too much. You end up with a bit of a lip. I don't know if the camera's going to pick this up. But if you push this till this is fully seated here, you end up with a bit of a lip out here. You can hear my finger catching on it if you can't see it. So what I've been doing is, I got to keep changing this focus. What I've been doing is putting some glue on here. I just take my medium set glue, and I put glue against this bottom ridge here. And what I do is I take the part, and where it's going to be touching on the end, I put a little bit of glue on there. And I don't mind if I have a little bit of overrun on that end, because we're going to take a look at how I'm going to have to try to fix those joints. But what I do is I take it and I stick it on here, and I line it up with those posts. But I don't push this all the way back. I push it in until it's flush, and I just hold it in place till that glue sets. Once it's flush with this rim, that's where I hold it at, because I don't want that lip on there. And I've got a couple little lip from the saucer there that I'm going to have to deal with as it is. But see, that sets up real quick. So that's how I've been putting my windows in on the rim. If you push them all the way back, you can see there's still a bit of a gap here. If I pushed them all the way back, you would have had a lot more of a lip on the front edge of this, and a lot more sanding that you have to do, and a lot more chance that you're going to destroy that sensor band on the front. So that's what I'm going to work on right now, is finish getting these window inserts in, and then I'm going to have to come back and Dremel out this edge here. But we'll take a look at that after I get these window inserts in. So let me get those in, and we'll be back. There you go. So I've got those, all those windows are in now. And the next step I'm going to have to do is, another reason why I didn't glue these old clips in here on the pegs is because I'm going to have to Dremel this plastic out. If you're not familiar with this, it's made for lighting, but for some odd reason they've got this lip in here that blocks the windows from being lit. So what you got to do is come in and cut out these areas where the windows are at, so the light will shine through them. So that's going to be my next step, is to cut that out. And then after that, I'm going to give this a nice washing, because you need to wash your parts before you start doing any type of painting or any major work on it. But I wanted to get these parts in place and get these windows dremelled out and get that done before I worry about washing, because you can see for some odd reason I've got a lot of, there's brown spots, almost looks like rust on it, on some of these spots. And these windows are really way off. These windows back here, these ovals, you can see this one here is really bad. The one on the other side was pretty bad too, but it's not even an oval. It's barely open. And a couple of these windows, this one's not open all the way. And so I'll have to do some work on opening those up before I can even put the window inserts in them. And I should say that the other thing I didn't mention about doing these windows. Now, when you get the Aztec, the Mask Design Aztec kit, it comes with window masks for all your windows. So you can put this all together, put your windows in, and you can use the window masks, and these fit perfectly if you're going to leave the windows as they are with the kit. Now I'm going to do something a little different. I'm going to, I already said I can't drill over windows worth of darn. If I could, I'd do them all, drill them all out, and fill them in with UV resin. But since I'm no good at it, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my acrylic windows that I paid for, and I'm going to put them in, sand them smooth. And what I'm going to do is I've got my Cricut, unfortunately, will not cut the small round. It's the size I need is about 1.8 millimeters. And it will not cut windows reliably that size, round windows. Now the oval windows, let me get that out the way. The oval windows, it would, for whatever reason, it would cut those, not consistently, but enough to where I could pick out the ones that looked really good and use those for the oval windows. But my Cricut, for whatever reason, will not cut the small round windows reliably. They have little jagged pieces to them, and they're not perfectly round. But what I found out was I have this leftover masking from when I did my original series 1350. I had 2 of these sheets because I messed up on a couple things and I needed a second sheet, so I got these. And what I realized is the smaller round windows for the Enterprise are actually the perfect size to use if you want to make these windows smaller. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to use these window masks for my round windows, and I'm going to use my custom cut oval window masks because the TOS didn't have oval windows, it had the square windows. So that doesn't help me there. But I'm going to use the oval masks that I did make, or was able to make with my Cricut, to mask the windows smaller. I'll mask them. I will light block them with black paint, and then I'll do the rest of the priming and all that over top of that. And that'll allow me to make the windows smaller like I want them to be for scale. Because what I didn't mention is that if you read Ian's website, the smaller windows help increase the scale of the ship. If not just from a visual standpoint, it just gives it a little more size. And cat's going crazy. Go on, guys. But it affects the scale, the way the scale appears to be on the ship if you make these windows a little bit smaller. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put these in. Using the smaller windows will allow me to move that smaller mask up into each side, depending on how I need to position it, just enough to where I won't have to re-drill these windows and fill them in and do them that way. So that's what my plan is. Hopefully it works out. If it doesn't, like I said, we got a plan B. So, but that's what I am going to work on now is dremeling out that window edge, and then I've got to insert those acrylic windows, but when I go to do that, we'll come back and take a look at it. But before I cut to a break real quick, or cut to another matter, I need to talk about, I got a package in the mail last week, kind of surprisingly, and it was from Trek Modeler. And if you remember when I did my preview, when I was talking about lighting kits, I mentioned that I would have loved to have gone with Trek Modeler, but the only kit they had for the A didn't do the amber to blue fade. It didn't do that. It didn't do the trend. It just lit up blue on the deflector dish. Well, I got a kit. Trek Modeler sent this to me. Didn't even know it was coming. And I had to email Trek Modeler and ask, hey, I don't remember ordering anything from y'all. What is this? Well, I got an email back from Trek Modeler saying, this is a new kit they're going to put out for the A that does the transition from the amber to the blue for the deflector dish. So it does everything else. This one does not have sound to it as far as I'm aware. There's no sound card to it that I can see. So it looks like it's just for the lighting effects. But that's cool. That's fine. I really wasn't too worried about the sound effects on this one. I'm going to do custom sound effects anyway because of the Photon board that I'm going to use. So they sent this to me. Now, they included in the email said, see the attached PDF. Well, there wasn't a PDF attached. So I sent an email back asking for the PDF and just verifying that, hey, you know, what's the deal with this? Is because I couldn't see it on the website anywhere. It's been a week now. I've left a voicemail. I've sent 2 emails, and I have not gotten a response back from them. So I don't know if they're on vacation or what the deal is. But hopefully I'll hear back from them because I can't really do much with this board until I get a little more information on it and at least a PDF on how to hook it up. But if it does all that, I am totally interested in using this board for this build, and I will save the other board that I have from Starling Tech for my refit when I do it. But I got to get more information from them, so hopefully I'll hear something back from them this week, and I'll get the PDF for that, and we can take a look at that board. But anyway, so on to what I was saying I was going to do. I'm going to work on dremeling out these edges here. I don't want to do that on camera because it's really loud, and you've probably seen other videos where they've done it before, so I don't want to rehash something that's already been gone over. But I'm going to dremel these out. I'm going to wash this real good and give it a good cleaning, this top part and the bottom part of the saucer section. And then we're going to look at putting those windows in, those acrylic windows in, and getting those sanded in and looking good. So give me a bit and we'll be back. All right, so you can see here I've got the all those windows are opened up now. And on top of the windows, you want to make sure that you open up so you can get access to your thruster ports on all 4 corners, and also your nav lights on the sides and in the front. So once you've got that opened up, or all these things opened up, you want to go back, take your hobby knife, and go back around and just make sure you clean up any like loose parts like that just slid out if the camera picked that up. But if you've done this with a Dremel, go around and just clean this up, because if you don't, inevitably what's going to happen is these pieces are going to come loose after you seal the saucer up, and you're going to end up having pieces just rattling around inside here. So just make sure you take the extra effort, go around with your hobby knife and clean up any loose pieces that may be in here, or any pieces that may come loose. Alright guys, so here's all the little shavings that I removed from inside the model. Kind of reminds me of rockfall mitigation. If you live out in the Rocky States, you know what I'm talking about. But better to get this stuff loose and get it out now before it comes loose and it's just rattling around inside your model after you seal it up. So got that all done, and the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go around. I'm going to take my thick CA glue and my zip kicker, and I'm just going to go around and reinforce these seams from the inside. So that way I don't have to worry about I don't have to worry about any of these seams kind of splitting apart once I get this thing closed up. So I'm going to fill some of these little areas now with my thick CA glue. And I'm just going to hit it with the zip kicker to lock it in place. That way I know all this stuff is set, and I know it's not going anywhere. I also want to make sure where I've opened this up, where these seams, these joints are, I'm going to get some CA glue in the back side of that, just to make sure that gets locked in place and it's not going anywhere. Because what I don't want is when I start getting to work, doing the putty work, and for these sensor bands, I'm going to have to re-etch some of them. I don't want that stuff to start moving and coming apart and have to keep repeating my work. So I'm going to go around and reinforce all these seams, and then we'll come back and take a look at getting some of these windows put in place. Alright, so I've got all that cleaned up, and I've actually gone around and started putting in my acrylic windows. Let me focus this a little bit here. Too bad this autofocus just keeps wanting to change, so I have to do manual. You can see the windows in there. Those are the acrylic inserts. And now the way I'm doing mine, now I noticed over on Sprueverse that Sprueverse has started doing these, and they're using the acrylic windows as well. They're actually doing a total redo of the 1350 build. I haven't seen a lot of progress on any of the other 1350 builds lately, but you know, everybody's got projects that they're working on. So the way I'm doing these is I'm pushing them in. I'm not pushing them in flush. What they actually recommend is that you push them in and leave a little bit sticking out. And then what I've been doing is coming back in, taking my thin CA glue and putting a little drop on the inside. And the way I'm doing that is don't go and run this excuse me, don't go and put this directly to the windows on the inside, because this thin will run everywhere. So what I do is I take it, if I can get the top off, there we go, and I put a little bit on the blade of my hobby knife, and then I just touch it to the outside of the window, outside edge of the window on the inside. Just touch it to the window and let it, you know, kind of that capillary action, run it around it. That way you don't have thin CA glue running all over the place. But that seems to be working pretty well. It runs around them and seals them in. Plus, I also get a little bit on the outside, so that way when I go to sand these, you can see here, they are all nice and flush and filled in. There's no gaps around them or anything. So these are going to look real good. Still debating whether I am going to reduce these in size with the masks or leave them. I like the way they look like this. Plus, I haven't really had any issues with a whole lot of damage to the sensor bands doing this. There's a little bit where the windows kind of run down into the sensor band a bit, and I've noticed it seems to be, and it could be, could have to do with when they pull these out of mold as to whether they're completely set or not. Or maybe it's just that over the years the molds are just getting worn and you're starting to see some issues. But I noticed on Ian's, these windows don't seem to run into the sensor bands like they do on mine. So, I don't know. I mean, you can see if the camera's picking it up and if I can get this in focus good enough. Let's see if I can get this a little bit closer and focused. I want you to be able to see what I'm talking about here. All right, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get that focused enough and still get decent enough light on it. But I don't know if the camera's picking it up, but this window here is running into the sensor band, literally runs right up against that window, the bottom edge. So part of the issue I'm going to have is if I want to keep these sensor bands, I'm going to have to re-etch that and hope that it doesn't, that it stays in place. I did this on some of the practice pieces I showed you, and it turned out all right. But the other option too, like I said, is if I can't get these right, I can go Boyd's method and just fill these sensor bands in, kind of what I've been doing here on this one seam. If anything, this is what's going to cause me a problem, is where these pieces join together, because I definitely have to re-etch those. And so far I have not had great luck making them look perfect. Because if they don't look perfect, then you know, I don't want a nice sensor band and all of a sudden here and it's a little pop there and you can tell where the joints are. If I can't do it without getting rid of the joints, then I'll probably go Boyd's method and just fill them in and then come back with some high build primer and just remake these ridges and then use decal on the inside. Because at this scale, I mean, 1/350, I don't think it's going to make that big of a difference. If it was like a DeBoer's hull where it's way larger, then yeah, you definitely want these sensor bands in there because you'd be able to tell it's a decal. But at this smaller scale, I don't know. We'll see. But anyway, if I want to do that, I'm going to have to re-etch this and hope I can get that sensor band line right there where it's cut off by the window to look right. And I don't know. I've had issues with that on my test pieces. So we'll see. But like I said, I have a plan B. B is in Boyd to fall back on. So anyway, what I'm going to do is finish getting these acrylic windows in all the way around. I do still have a little issue to work out with this back window here, the rec deck windows, because these don't quite fill out the way these actually are supposed to touch the sensor bands, top and bottom. So I got to figure out what I'm going to do with that, as far as whether I'm going to correct that or just leave it as it is. But we'll take a look at that. But I'm going to get the rest of these windows in, and I started working on the top of the saucer, you can see here. And what I've done is I've gone, and there was a discussion on, I don't know if it was Starship Modeler or one of them, where somebody was talking about whether or not the phaser banks are flush or whether they sit raised, whether the rectangle that's around the phaser emitters themselves is raised. Now, I don't want to start a debate on here, but I'll show you this picture. I think this is one I might have showed earlier, but to me, in this image, I don't see a shadow or a raised platform around those emitters. To me, that platform, that raised area around the emitters is flush, and the only thing you've got sticking up above that is the phaser emitters themselves. So I sanded them off. And that's kind of why I got this mess up here, because I went a little bit overboard with sanding it off and had to do a little fill here. So this primer, by the way, very good at bonding to plastic, because I cannot get it off. I've been trying to sand it and it just does not come off. So it bonds really well. But so I've went over and sanded the whole top just to give it kind of a rough texture to it. Not rough texture, but something that the paint can grab onto. I think I finished this off with like I don't know if it was a 450 or 800 grit, 400 and something, maybe a 400 grit. So that's what I did, just to take away some of that sheen, let the paint set on something. And so I've got those phaser banks sanded off, and I'll put those back on later. I also sanded down the raised areas where the nav lights are, because at this scale I don't think those should be raised either. And I also sanded these ones down back here. It's my preference. You may see it a different way or want to do it a different way, but that's up to you. But what I want to start working on is, now that I've kind of got this, and once I get these windows in and get those kind of situated, I'm going to start working on the bridge, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. And I need to start working on my officer. Well, I'm not using the officer's lounge because I'm doing the A, so I'm going to use the dining setup that we saw in Star Trek 6 is what's going to go back there. But either way, I need to work on these windows back here, get those in, and then we will come back and take a look at it and see where we're at. So give me a minute. Alright guys, so I've got a couple things done on here that I just want to talk about real quick. So the bridge, let's start from the top, work our way back and bottom. But so the bridge on this, the part that comes with the kit is inaccurate. It's missing a couple things. For one, there's supposed to be some vents on the side of the bridge here. They're not present there. So I've got this part that I downloaded from ModelWorks and 3D printed. And the great thing about this is that the bridge dome removes. If I want to add the bridge to it, I can. I don't know if I'm going to do that, but the option is there if I want to. But the other thing is too, it's a bit more accurate than, and I think I already talked about this in an earlier video, it's a bit more accurate than the kit part. So the other issue is that when you look at this, if you install the kit part as it's intended to, you'll notice that it sits back pretty far from the edge here. I'll raise this up a little bit. It sits back pretty far from the edge here. Now if you look at, hang on, I got stuff falling down. Let me show you this image of the studio model. Now if you look here, this is an image of the studio model. It's a top-down view, which gives you a really good idea of how far forward this bridge should be sitting on the BC deck. And it's definitely way far forward than what the kit part sits if you put it in as it's made. This is also going to help in lighting that registry on the front if we push this forward, and being able to use the light coming out the front to light that registry. So the aftermarket part I got, you'll notice here's those grills I was talking about. They're missing. These are missing off the kit part. And I think on the kit parts, it's pretty close, but it's not quite accurate to some of the molding also that's present on here. So let me switch you back. All right, and then again, you can see here's the kit part on here. And what I've done is, let me see if I need to focus a little bit here. You see these pencil lines I made on the front here. Well, that's how much far forward this needs to sit to be close to what the studio model is showing. So I'm not going to be using this anyway. And I ground this open so I can do my lighting a little easier. But this bridge is going to sit about like that. And that's going to be a lot closer to what it needs to be. So I'm working on that. I had to remove those raised lines. You see I got a little overzealous again with my grinder or my Dremel, and Dremel a little bit too much. So I got to fill that in, finish sanding a little bit more. So that's what I'm working on for that part. For the impulse deck, Cass over Lake Monster Details sent me over the original DLM part for that. So what I've done here is I've gone and again I've removed those notches. There's some raised notches here that the kit part sits on. You need to remove those to use this because this needs to be able to sit in there flush. Let's see if I need to focus again. Always focusing. There we go. So you see how that kit part or that DLM part is going to sit in there, and it's a little more accurate and detailed than what the kit part is. But it'll take a little bit of filling. Got to fill a little bit on the underside here, but other than that, not a whole lot of work will have to go into that. And this is a solid clear resin part, so it's going to diffuse the light nicely. I can put the LEDs directly behind these, and it should light up really nice. But I've got to check. I believe the photo etch from Paragraphics still fits these. I'll have to double check. But so that's another thing I'm working on. I got to do a lot of light blocking on this, and I think I got to double check and see if Gary's mask kit comes with masks for this. I think it does, but don't hold me to that. I got to look yet. But outside of that, the other thing I'm working on, so I got a couple things going on. I've got to do the Officer's Lounge windows back here, but I'm not doing the Officer's Lounge. I'm doing the Officer's Mess. As seen in Star Trek 6, and Cass has sent me over this part here from Lake Monster Details, and this is the Officer's Mess. I've already cut this open. And it does come with some decals that you can use on the back here if you so desire, on the above part here. And this is going to fit in. I dremeled out, there's another lip here again, and I dremeled that out so that this piece would be a little bit easier to position in there. And once I get that into place, that's what you're going to get. So I'll get that painted up and lit up, and might add some fiber optics to it just to make it pop a little more. But once I get to that part, we'll take a look at it and I'll show you my results. But so that's what I'm going to be working on. I got a couple things I got to catch up. I know Ian, when he does his build, he kind of jumps from this to doing the shuttle bay, which again, Cass has sent me that over. But Cass is reworking the bottom. Let me see, did I open this yet? I don't know if I did. I don't think I did. But Cass is reworking the bottom of this because the kit originally, the original DLM kit did not have the ability to add those lighted strips on the bottom here. So Cass is reworking this bottom part into another clear part, just like the sidewalls. He's working this into a clear part, and he's going to send that to me. So as soon as I get that back, I can start working on the shuttle bay, and we can take a closer look at that. But he's got this kit he sent me over. And one other thing I want to say before I close this out, I like to try to keep my videos kind of short. I don't like to do hour-long videos because nobody really wants to sit and watch me do this for an hour. So I'm going to try to keep this down. I think I'm pushing 30 minutes now, so I'm going to try to wrap this up. But one other thing I want to talk about, I did find the templates of that Ian Lawrence had done. that I had 10 years ago when I came across these and couldn't find them again. I have found the hard drive that they were on, and I got them. This is cut off a little bit because these are meant to be printed on leather, legal size paper, not regular standard leather size. So, but it doesn't matter because I'm not using this part, and I'm not using this part because I'm trying to light those sections naturally. I will probably use the nacelle patterns, and I'm not sure what else. Probably the neck I'm going to try to light naturally. The rear top saucer where you got the registry, which is right behind the officer's lounge, I'll probably use this one for that. And the way these work is basically you cut these out, and you take them and you place them on the inside. You use double-sided. You roll a piece of tape over and tape it to the inside. And you don't need it to be nice and tight because you want a little bit of bleed around it to kind of give you a little bit of a shadow, so it gives a little bit of a fading effect. I'll show you more about that when I get to that part, but just want to let you know. I will put these up. I'll put the link below. I'll put these up for anybody that's interested in downloading them. These are sized for 1/350. You can make them smaller for 1/537, which I've done before as well. But I'll put a link for these down below. But basically, you fix those to the inside. You do your light blocking, you remove them, and then you've got your patterns in there for your Ratheon effect. So there's that. I also came across this template for Ian had done for the light boxes for the saucer windows. So if you want to do light boxes on your windows, and really it's only necessary to do that if you're looking to control the appearance of the internal lights coming on separate from everything else, which I'm not really going to do. I'm not too worried about that. But if you wanted to, you could use these. Now this is downloaded from Ian's website, from his first build log that he did. If you print it out as it is, it's going to come out like this, which is way oversized. So what I did was I resized it to meet his measurements as he's gotten on there. And I'll put a link sharing the file down for this down the notes below as well. But basically take these, and you use this template to make these out of plastic card. And then you just pretty much cut them, fold them into shape, and you just affix them to the inside saucer rim where your windows are. And then you can add your lighting to the inside, or you can light it from the outside and have these light up separate from the rest of the ship if you wanted to. But again, I'm not too sure I'm going to do that. I'm not worried about having the internal lights come on separately. And then you still got to work out the internal lights for the secondary hull and all that. But anyway, I'll share that link in case anybody's interested in it. It'll be there. I want to share Ian's work as much as possible. So that being said, I've laid out a couple things I need to work on. So the bridge, impulse, and officer's lounge or officer's dining room. I'm going to be working on those and getting those painted up and done up so I can get those inserted and start working on everything else on the saucer. So I'll be working on that, and that's pretty much it, guys. Thank you for watching these videos. I appreciate everybody's feedback and support on these. And please make sure you visit my comrades in arms, Gus over at GCals, Cass over at Lake Monster Details, and Gary over at Mask Design. So check out all the links for those are down below in the notes, and I'll also add the links for these other items I've talked about. So again, guys, thank you again for watching. Till next time, keep modeling.